We're finishing up season 2 here on Travel Evolved. So today we're going to do our 100th episode, and we thought we'd celebrate a little bit by going back and kind of taking a look at what we've done so far, some of the reasons why we, scheduled our episodes like we did, a quick peek into the future, and again, reference points so that if you haven't listened to all these episodes, you can kind of pinpoint the ones that you're interested in and go back and kind of gain your traveler knowledge a little bit from this series. It's our 100th episode on today's edition of Travel Evolved. This is Travel Evolved. I'm Mark Holloway. Thank you for joining us, and I'm going to congratulate ourselves. We've had 100 episodes of Travel Evolved, and I guess we're going to celebrate a little bit today and kind of talk about some of the things we've covered. I mean, that's really the title of this episode, is that we're going to kind of revisit things we've learned and kind of talk about why we arrange things this way. I want to give you guys some tips that if you kind of joined us in the second season or just here and there, I'm going to try to point out some things that are kind of episodes that I think, based upon how we organize them and some of the big categories, which I've never really spoken about, you guys can kind of go back and cherry pick some episodes that you think might be helpful. Because, again, the whole point of this series is to educate, and we think education means agencies will have to respond to that. They can't just pull the wool over travelers' eyes or hope that they don't think about some of the simplistic numbers that we deal with, and they make them complicated. So we kind of thought we'd do that. First of all, again, I want to thank everybody that listened to us on the 99th episode, Next Gen Med Staff. That was a tough one. I got amped up, as you guys know, and I do. I think it shows, and I did that one relatively late in the evening. I hope that showed my passion, because I can't help it. Here, 3 years later, when I start talking about why I believe this industry should and is going to change, and some of the reasons why, it's exciting to me, because like I said on that episode, and 3 years ago, in this whole series and podcast and YouTube channel we're doing, it was all because things are going to get better. I understand that we've got ups and downs. There was a lot of stuff we did not anticipate, literally, almost the day we started, drafting up and writing our business plan. That being said, I know there's some discouragement out there, but I really hope you guys understand now why we felt this series just worked hand in hand with what we're doing, because I think other companies that are transparent and understand that, again, this is simple stuff, but this industry has kind of purposely kept it hidden because, I'll be honest, you guys don't ask. A lot of travelers hadn't asked for the last 23 years or 25 years or 30 years, I guess. They just didn't ask. As time's gone by, people have started to become more informed. A lot of people really understand this stuff, and I think Travel Evolved, for many people, might be mostly knowledge, and they might get a couple of tips here and there. But anyway, it was a fun episode to do, long. But I want to get out of the way. So now, going forward into season 3, we can kind of reference, what we're doing. And if you hear me, I'll just keep saying, see episode 99. Go listen to episode 99. I'm going to do that a lot. I want to get back to, really talking about Travel Evolved and kind of pushing other things aside so we can kind of keep the series integrity in check and kind of go from there. But it was important. I just feel like for the last 20-some episodes, I've been kind of referencing and talking about, and slowly I've been kind of basically coming out and saying it, but I wanted to give you guys the background because I think that was fair. And hopefully it filled in some blanks for you. So appreciate you watching that one. It was tough. Today, like I said, here's where we are. We've done 2 full seasons of 50 episodes. This one took a little longer because of our availability. I'm hoping that my personal time, I'd love to see start to become a little bit more free, which means that we're moving in the right direction. If I'm struggling to find time in this next year to do episodes that I think are vitally important for you guys, that means that I'm still having to have my fingers, really into our model. And I'm really hoping that because of the technology improving and because of just the industry, our business, the supply and demand out there, that won't be the case. So I really hope that we'll finish and we'll be able to, adhere to our roughly our once every 6 weeks. But we plan 50 a year because we know there's going to be times we just can't. Holidays are kind of weird. We don't always do that. But anyway, so let's talk about this. I want to take you guys back and tell you a little bit more history of Travel Evolved. So we're going to stick with this. We wanted to come up with a series that we felt was completely different. Now, I've done some things that are similar, but we said this has got to be A to Z, every single thing that all of us, and by the way, it was me and about 3 other quite established people in the industry, and then we had a handful of some RNs that had worked and were going to and were excited about the app, that sort of thing. I already said it, blew it already. They were involved in some things. They put in some feedback, and we had a lot of other people. Even our social media person was kind of involved in some things to kind of help us. But we just started rattling off topics. A lot of the topics were kind of like, hey, we can't do this one until we do this one, if that makes sense. And we got them all out there. And like I said, we had close to, I can't remember really, but I want to say maybe 180 that we just had thrown out there. And we lumped them into things like, and I wrote it down here, but a lot of things were what we call almost like self-help, self-awareness. And those, as you guys know, I will say, I think those are sometimes the toughest ones for me because I think about this stuff a lot, but where it's hard for me is to do a podcast and not to try to sound like I'm, and I hate to use his name because he's a good guy and I don't have any problem. It sounds very Tony Robbins-ish to me. And I didn't want that to come across that way. It's really hard. But those are the episodes that I said, let's put them on there because I'll figure out a way to do it. And I'll just apologize for the whole episode. And if you'll notice, I do, because sometimes there was a quick research by other people. Sometimes for me, I always want to research myself because even though someone else may be putting things in the outline, and usually, like I said, it's a 1-page outline. I have the episodes here on a couple of sheets, so I don't have one in front of me, but it's just bullet points. And then we would take, especially on some of the topics that are not, this sort of self-help, they were really bullet points, and I would just run with it. But on those bullet points ones, it just was like we're researching, and now let's just basically regurgitate what we know at a very, very high level, and let's get it out there because we felt that, and the team did, and we were adamant about this, we felt that it was really rounding people out, and it really centered around the uniqueness of your career, and I'm talking about traveling. We felt that there were a lot of conversations, and I've had many over the last 20 years where it's kind of obvious that there's a nomadic lifestyle in nature, and there is a lot of bonding. But for a lot of people, there's some downtime, and we felt, it is important. If we're going to talk about how to be a great traveler, we can't ignore the things that will help your motivation, help your mind, help your enthusiasm, things that are going to make it so that you get through this and that you can extend this career if you want to, as long as possible. So we did a lot of those things, and we kind of put those into those categories, and then we said, okay, and I said, here's the ones I want to do, and I definitely had an opinion, and they were agreed upon by all of them, but most of those were a lot of the financial things, and I'm not talking about high-end financial, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the agency financials. I said, this is where I felt we were, at the beginning, this was my opinion, this was the most important ones. It's just what I thought. I don't think that was really right. I think they're all important, because what we've learned over the last 2 years is that people know certain things and other things are important. So it's really very subjective to what you're looking for, what your needs are, where your deficiencies are. But the financial stuff that really was specific to travel agencies, the things that I felt you guys should understand, starting off with like bill rate and how hospitals calculate that and who pays the bill, how a company works, how they calculate their margin first, and how that bill rate is taxed, and things like the pie. All those episodes that I felt I should say I was hoping they were going to be kind of an eye-opening experience for many of you. What I had learned up until 21 years ago, repeatedly, especially as I got into social media with the last company I was running, we did that, and I was so uncomfortable, and I still am, but I've gotten used to this because I think it's just part of the job. But I felt that there was a lot of people that were craving that, and I know why it wasn't out there. And we openly talked about this, and the board of directors, investors, people that were part of Next Gen Med staff, we had to make sure, I had to make sure it was okay to talk about those things, because I said we're going to be educating everybody on things that I think are unique, and I hope the audience grows, because it should be like, holy cow. And they all agreed, so I ran a lot of those things by them, and here's what we basically said. Very quickly, there was truly nothing that we couldn't discuss. Nothing at all. We wanted to not name names of hospitals. We wanted to stay away from naming names of vendors and people, and other agencies especially. Other agencies don't do that, and we've seen that before, where they'll throw other people in the bus or specific names, that sort of thing. I said, I'm not going to do that. It's not important, and I just take the high road in that stuff, because I think it just looks bad. And so I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to talk about specifically what we had seen. And a lot of my 2 decades previous kind of guesses, and I'm 99% sure, had really been validated from 2018 to really 2020. So we want to get those out there. There was certainly what I would call some fine-tuning episodes where we couldn't talk about certain things until other things have been covered, but they were still part of the financial, but I wouldn't call them the nuts and bolts stuff that I was adamant about getting on there. So we knew that there was some fine-tuning with things like how agencies make money and how recruiters, like we just did, make money. Areas that would make more sense once you understood the bill rates and those sorts of things. So we categorized those as kind of fine-tuning ones, where it was specific, and a lot of those came from questions we had heard from current travelers that were just kind of wanted to talk about it, or misunderstood, or wanted to know more about it. Of course, we threw in the things that I always think are important, the fitness ones. I will almost call it that. And I try to minimize those, but it's part of self-help kind of, but I wanted to get experts on there. I wanted to tell people what I had learned. I had dedicated a lot of time in learning more and more, and always qualifying. But it's one of those things that, like any hobby or anything that you do, you start to get better and better at it. And I always wanted to say, I want people in our country to be in better shape and live longer, be healthier. And it wasn't necessarily, I'm not talking about lifting weights. I'm talking about everything from food to how you eat, and to help travelers with that department, and also with the challenge and the increased challenge of having to do it while they're on the road, which I felt was good. So we had those physical fitness ones in there. We had a lot of things that were, here's kind of, I guess I would say not recruiter, that's absolutely the wrong word. Traveler, see, I'm still on the recruiter stuff. Traveler specific things that would help, that were, how to prepare for your next assignment, how to look at your resume, how to credential properly, how to interview agencies and understand, what you're looking for from them. In other words, kind of prepping, and we did one prepping for your next assignment that were really specific as to, here's how you can, and this was one of them, improve your traveler marketability. They were all going toward helping you secure an assignment and get you interviewed faster and get you through the process quicker, because of things that we felt you guys needed to know and hear from other travelers that we thought would be really beneficial and helpful to kind of move you there. So we had all those that were kind of very specific, geared at marketing you higher, marketing yourself higher, and getting your head wrapped around, when to and how to look for a next assignment, whether it was your particular, credentials and paperwork and references and those kinds of things, to, how do you find the company, the agency, or the recruiter you're looking for, and when to do that, what happens if you extend. A lot of those things we categorized into kind of that lump sum category. We had the last category, I'll tell you, was things that we couldn't really lump in anything, but we thought they were important. I'll go over what those are, but they didn't really fit into any of those. And so basically what we did is we took those main categories and we kind of separated the episodes out. We really spent a lot of time, and I think you guys should know that, really focusing heavily on what episodes needed to kind of come up first, because that was something that was very important. We didn't want to be talking about hours 36 to 40 or overtime until we'd covered bill rates and how the whole thing broke down and the pie and things like that. So we had to take you down that road. And that's why I've always said, if you guys are listening to an episode and something doesn't make sense, you should be able to go back and find some episodes that fill in the blank and fill in the details. And that's why we always reference, go back and start from the beginning. Because even on the episodes that I would call like self-help, there was a lot of things that we talked about in those that, we'll throw some things out there. My brain, as you guys can tell, I talk really quickly, which I'm trying to do better at, and here 2 years later, I'm not. It's all those things had to be in place first before you went back. And we always say, go back and listen to them. I still think if this is your first episode you ever listened to, if you just joined us a few weeks or even a few months ago, or just this past second season, there's a lot of good stuff, really good stuff at the very beginning. And we opened up with things like that about communication. And that was kind of a big thing for me, is that it was part of the whole process. We need to communicate more amongst the triangle of trust, if you understand that. So we did that. We kind of broke them apart. We had, like I said, about 180 episodes. We wanted to make this a very specific guest type podcast and YouTube. I mean, some channels that are not in our field are all that. Things that were important to me was I've seen companies that have done podcasts and YouTubes and post things where a traveler comes into their office and they just highlight themselves and that traveler that works for them. We wanted to stay away from that. We did just have our first travelers that have ever that we've ever had on. Certainly not the first ones that have worked for us. They've only been with us for 9 or 10 months. But we kind of stayed away from that because we wanted to not self-promote, and it just felt like we didn't want to. And I mean, listen, Maria and Nnamdi I love them both to death. They're just great people. And thank you guys once again for doing that episode. But we wanted to stay away from, the kind of things that happen. And I'm very grateful for what they said, but that was the thing I didn't want to have happen early. We knew we were on the right track. We knew our travelers liked us. We talked about our retention and how high that is. It's better by far than any company I've ever worked for, because even though there's no loyalty right now, it really comes down to the money. And Maria said it's a lot about communication, but the things we wanted to do really, really well that we said would have to supersede the recruiterless model. In other words, we've got to strengthen customer service, strengthen communication in order to make it appear that we're not. And all we're really doing is eliminating that recruiter process, which we felt was the whole nugget. So when that's gone, we felt because it's new, we had to increase that. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that. But the guest issue really was we wanted to have as many guests as we could on. And I said, let's not just have travelers on. Let's have some other experts that can talk intelligently about things that we can't discuss here. We can't even write scripts for. We really have attempted to do that. We've got a lot more coming up. A lot of financial stuff is coming in season 3, so I'll already tell you that. We've got a lot of things that have to do with taxes and 401ks and even actually forming your own LLC and how that works and how taxable and 1099. There's a ton of things that I think will be better explained if I have a couple of financial guests on. And maybe there'll be travelers that can give their knowledge, but we're also going to be dealing with, like we always have, some people that really have an expertise in things that are just not in my wheelhouse and need to be handled and ignorantly asked by me to an expert so we can get some really good information. So we had those. We knew those were going to increase the episodes, and they did. And the traveler stuff, what was kind of important about those, we may have reached out to a lot of non-industry people for things that we specifically want to cover, topics that I said, guys, we got to have an expert on this. I can't talk about this and we had to do a few of them, like the insurance one, where we just couldn't find the right body. But that's where we reach out, and that's what we're looking at going forward. And if you see those episodes, that was part of it. So we knew we would grow our list of episodes, or at least we'd be taking some that we thought we could handle, or I could handle myself, and I would say, no, let's get an expert. So we knew our list would grow. And then finally, let me even finish that thought again a little bit more. The traveler aspect, we said, we've got to have people that can give us more. Guys, this list we created, there's no way, shape, or form that this is remotely complete, because we're looking at it from truly our standpoint. We had a handful of travelers that were working on our beta test that were helping us with a few things, and they threw out some things that we couldn't either make an episode or we combined some things, but we said, I wanted people, and I still do, that can reach out and say, here's something you guys didn't think of. And I thought that's going to be huge, and I want to do that more often. It's hard because, let's face it, a lot of people don't like to do this. It took me 3 years to be able to do what I do now, and I'm still uncomfortable. It's not fun. It's hard, especially when you're by yourself. You've got to fill in the blanks. And like I say, my presentation style, I wish I could improve upon it. It's just the way I am. I think quickly, I talk quickly, and as you can tell, even today, sometimes my brain is working faster than my mouth can keep up. I think I've shared with you guys that I did host a radio show when I was in college, and that didn't help the speed in which I talk, for sure. But we knew that was incredibly important. And I will ask you guys again, right here and right now, if you are seeing things that we haven't covered, just reach out on Travel Evolved, our Facebook group, or put a comment. I don't think you can put a comment on the podcast, but you can put one down on the YouTube. I don't think you want to put your name and number out there, but you can instant message me directly, I think, and the administrators on Travel Evolved, the Facebook group. So join that. We are going to go live. I'll share that with you. We're going to start going back live once we're in California. But I really need some help on some things that we missed, we didn't cover well, we missed completely, we got the wrong message out, or that we haven't thought of, and some timely issues, which was the last category I want to say, is that we also knew that things would jump in. And we've had a lot of those, especially because once we started doing the episode, COVID was already kicking, but boy, we didn't really have a great idea of how many times we had to pause and say, let's talk about what's happening in the marketplace right now. We felt that was important. We hope that those episodes stand the test of time, and historically they'll still make sense, because they may not be specific to exactly what's going on in the future, but the similarities should be there, which means I hope the knowledge and the information we put out there, we really tried to make those so that they could be beneficial for anything that comes up in the future, whether it's some seasonality or just kind of increases in rates, decreases in rates, and all that sort of thing. So we knew that there would be a lot of those, and we know that there still will be. And all that had to be surrounded upon a podcast, YouTube channel, a show, a series, I'll say series, that had some meat and some information on it. We did want it to be timeless, and I guess I'll mention that real quickly, because I think there's a finite number of things we're going to do specifically for Travel Evolved. I have no idea if social media be something that makes sense down the road, or if this will hopefully be something that we can promote for a long time and maybe have it end. I don't know. We'll see. I'll talk about the future here in a minute. But again, the whole concept made sense, and I was worried about it, because here I'm saying we're going to start a new company with a completely brand new. And it really was, when we had the idea, no one else truly at that moment had exactly what we were talking about. A completely recruiterless, phone-only model that replaced all recruiting, and that the rates were specifically designed to reflect that. We didn't see a combination of all that, and that's why we felt that we were excited about it. We felt we had a good market niche. We felt there would be travelers that would be interested in, and in that, we knew there would be travelers, and will always be travelers that will never be interested in that. Until, like I said, if my guess is right that there aren't any of those people. And then I'm going to jump in and start to do a weekly series. It was really difficult. And I think it shows in some episodes where I'm tired. I'm tired now, by the way, because, I'll just tell you in a second. But I get weary sometimes, and there were a lot of late nights. And I know I've told you guys that I was passionate about some things. I had experiences for sure with working with a new startup, basically, that there were times when time just absolutely disappeared, and I'd look up and I would be at home, and it would be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I just was so entrenched and involved in what I was doing that I did lose track of time, and I had to kind of combine that with this. Certainly over the last 2 years, there's been times when travel for myself and focus and things that came up that were more important, and I hate to say that, but there were, had to supersede this series. So we knew that was going to be in place. I anticipate that's still going to be in place. But we were excited about what we wanted to do, because we felt this had to be timeless, kind of timely, informative, fun, which I don't think we make these fun too much. I don't tell a lot of jokes on this. The fun stuff was hard because it's hard unless you have a guest. But we wanted to make them entertaining. We wanted to make it so you guys listen to it. And here's where we found what we have found. I guess I want to kind of talk about that. Then we'll kind of get some specifics on there. We found that we definitely had an audience, and we're always trying to increase that audience, because again, I think it's an advantage for our company. Let's be frank. Again, like I said, we're not scared to educate travelers because we think it's going to help bring business our way. That's just the facts. So it all made sense. We could do this without feeling bad or whatever. It just worked in sync so well. And that's, I think, what got me so excited about both the business and this podcast, was that it made sense. And I always said, it doesn't matter if it doesn't amount to specific business with us. And I wasn't really concerned about the beginning. I said, it's going to help change the industry itself. So that was interesting and a lot of fun. That's why we created it. What we found was our subscriptions have always increased. They've never diminished. Our listenership diminished on times when we take weeks and weeks on end off. I mean, that's just natural. No one's listening to it because there's not a new episode. But we look at the statistics a little bit, and it's fun to see which episodes are the most listened to. I'm not ready to tell you which they are, because then you guys are only going to listen to those, and which ones we kind of thought weren't and aren't. We always were surprised the ones we thought. Sometimes we thought an episode would be great and it didn't have a lot of audience, or vice versa. Some of them are head scratchers, like, why are people listening to that one? I don't remember there being anything that I thought would be a big pull. But it's also just a lot of it's happenstance and luck. But we proved that we had an audience, and I guess that's where I wanted to go with that. We still, I will tell you, we've got another 100 episodes for sure. So again, I'm guessing that we will maybe have enough for 3 more seasons, because there's going to be the same thing. Hopefully we're going to get more traveler involvement, more expertise involvement. And I think there's going to be some more things that pop up. Now, whether it's 50 more episodes, I don't know. But at this point, we are basically, I would say, at the halfway point. Maybe we're only, 40% of the way done. I don't know which it is. But there is a lot more coming, for sure. So I want to highlight a few things. Like, for example, let's talk about some of the let's talk about the number stuff first, because I think it was specific. And I brought my glasses. I need to put these on because I want to make sure I'm reading these right. So again, specifically talking about creating a business mindset. That was an episode where I wanted people to understand the importance of how to make sure you treat this like a business. We jumped into, holiday pay and company margins in reverse order. Bill rates, we explained that. Supply and demand. We went into the pie. Nothing is free. We talked specifically about how you should be paid for hours 36 to 40, for overtime, for callback. We jumped into tax advantage on some of those things and explained that, the numbers that a company's looking for a complete package to be able to quote you. In other words, anything more than 386, anything more than 486, 520 if it's a 40-hour work week. That was all bonus money that none of us expected to be making. And we talked about the margins and what they should be doing. A lot of those were really important. So you can now probably go back I don't know if you're on a YouTube channel or if you're on a podcast, and you can see specifically that each kind of episode sort of changed. There's financial stuff, there's tips stuff, there's guest things, there's things that maybe don't fit into category. There is some fine tuning. There's certainly a handful of fitness things, which we wanted to keep kind of at a minimum. It wasn't a big, it wasn't the largest grouping for sure. There was a lot of that sort of thing that was coming in. You'll see the ones that you can tell are just like thrown in there because they're very, very timely. And we've got things coming up that are the same. Again, the whole first 200 were organized that way. We've gotten off of that structure and that cadence a little bit here and there because things kind of changed. But for the most part, every episode has kind of stayed exactly what we designed, with just the change of throwing things in there when we felt they were important. So that was it. And again, so I want to kind of preview, and let's tell you where we are and what we're doing so that you guys know. If I'm right, this episode will be aired sometime either late June, probably more likely early July, 4th of July. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of it because we're still in Colorado. This is the last episode we're going to record here. So I'm actually heading out in a few days, which is going to be, mid-May, to say the least. And I'm heading to the LA office, and I'm actually going to get a place a little bit south of there because, we work from home a lot, but I'm also going to be going up there a lot to work on some things that are, NGMS related, and continue to focus on this. So I would like to go ahead and create a studio. We'll see if I can at the actual office. I think there'll be times when I can knock one out there. I'll do some things down south of there as well. But we really want to focus on that. So that's why I wanted to get all these episodes out. It just made sense if we could possibly, and I didn't think I was going to, be able to get 100 episodes that were done, and then we could start season 3 brand new out there giving me basically like a month and a half off to focus on the things I know I'm going to be incredibly busy with when they first get out there. And that was the goal too. I didn't want to have to be thinking about this. I could really focus on the things I need to. And once those are kind of coming into place and things I had to do operationally and that sort of thing, it would give me a break, which is good because that's exactly what happened. And I'm excited about it. So a couple of things I want to talk about. Let's talk about some specific episodes. I usually don't do this, but I'm going to tell you, we're going to tackle some very risky topics, things like I say that, and I've got some highlights. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but you're going to be surprised that we're willing to talk about some things that is and are very inherent in healthcare travel, and that I think either are an issue, a problem, or at least we need to talk about whether they're comfortable or not. And you'll know the episodes as they come up. I just think we should discuss it because I think we should. It would be disingenuous if I didn't become completely transparent. So there are things, again, that we talk about everything, but you're going to be really surprised that we're willing to stick our necks out and talk about these sorts of things because they're risky. But again, for the sake of the industry, for the sake of healthcare travel in the future, we think it's time to start talking about those for sure. A lot of guests. I've got some financial guests, some CPAs coming on. We're going to delve into taxation and tax homes and tax advantage, the GSA. Again, forming your own LLC and some of the weird things about that. That's going to be way down the road, but I'm telling you, There's some compelling reasons for that. A lot of very, very bright travelers have talked about that, 1099 themselves, having things go into a corporation. We're going to openly talk about those sorts of things. We're going to revisit COVID. I can tell you that. We had that scheduled. That was not an original. We did the COVID episode. I want to revisit that episode because I think it's going to be important to talk about that. And we'll probably try to time that 2 years after the fall of 2021. So fall of 2023, we'll probably be doing, we're going to revisit that. We're going to continue to talk about the evolvement of the industry. We're going to see how things are changing. We're absolutely going to continue to talk about the recruiting model and any shift that we see. Social media, I think, is going to be an important aspect of it. We're going to absolutely continue to work on and talk openly about those things that I'm uncomfortable or not even knowledgeable about, that we think we can start the conversation and you guys can kind of really take it from there if it's something that you are interested in or think you agree upon. I'm going to beg and plead again because I'll just tell you, I hope we have 3 more seasons, and we probably will, but I don't want to just create episodes that aren't really bam, 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 which is what I think we've done until now, that aren't very specific just to get another 50 episodes out. If we see that's happening, great. But what you guys can do if you want another 3 years instead of 2 years of this, I do think it's really important that we have more travel guests on here with, I don't care if it's a different opinion than I have, if it's a new thing we haven't thought of, please. Definitely things that you're seeing currently. I just think it's important. And just know, like our mentorship episode, you really are helping amass larger number of people than you can just at your own facility if you come on and you're openly willing to talk about any topic, especially a timely one. So please join the Travel Evolve Facebook group and get your stuff out there. You can instant message, you can post a topic right there. If you'd like us to reach back out to you, you can follow us on TikTok, did I say? TikTok, which is just NextGen MedStaff. And we do get a lot of people that are interested in on that, and a lot of our Facebook groups. So follow us on that. It's of course we're promoting. It's NextGen MedStaff, so we are promoting the company, but we have a lot of excerpts from these podcasts with guests and everything else. So we're trying to get our audience to grow there. We're trying to get our audience to grow everywhere because, again, the point of that is the more people that listen to this, the more challenged agencies are going to be to not be able to be not forthright, if that makes sense on stuff. So a lot of that sort of thing. So a lot of experts, and then we're going to continue to fine tune. We're going to continue to talk about the future of this industry, where we are now. And again, ideally, we've got 2, potentially 3 more seasons of this series, and we can hopefully wrap it up and kind of feel like we've got a pretty good nutshell of almost every very specific topic that we think was important to at least bring up or address to help create a stronger, more savvy, more formidable healthcare traveler. And at the end of the day, as I always say, that was really what the importance was. So again, I can't thank you guys enough. I'm very, very proud and pleased that we put out 100 episodes so far. You never know. We could have put out 3 and it could have been like, nah, no one's interested. So we are gaining interest. Our traction is always going uphill. It just increases sometimes more than others. And I think a lot has to do with information being spread out there. It has something to do with our marketing of this podcast for sure, and a lot of word of mouth. So it's interesting. And again, I'm doing the best I can. I am who I am, so you can't avoid that. So I hope that you can understand. Sometimes it's really difficult to talk like this all the time, and it's I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying to make it more entertaining. I'm trying to keep doing better and better for you guys. But you're unfortunately stuck with me. So let's get some more guests so you don't have to hear me talk all the time. But I guess we'll say thank you very, very much. This is a celebration for us. Great closure. The next time, by the way, and we're not going to wait. Hopefully we'll be 6 days after this one with the brand new Series 3 and Episode 101 from California. But guys, I really, really am grateful. I'm so thankful that this is working, so I feel it's a great two-way street. You guys are continuing to feed us by increasing your subscriptions, by increasing the number of times you're watching this stuff, and that's our biggest barometer. If it loses viewership or no one's watching, we'll stop because it tells us that we're not there, and that's not happening. So I cannot thank you enough, and I'm glad this is working for many of you, and that's what we'll leave it at. So goodbye from Denver for now, guys. I appreciate it so much. We'll catch you next season on Travel Evolved.